That's not as close as it looks. GBR Challenge to windward, closer to the wind. That's better. 26 seconds to go. This is looking good for GBR Challenge. They're on the pace. You can see the line now. The British team are to windward.
Time and distance for the start's really good here. They're just a few seconds early, but we had information before that they did want the right, and it's the right they've got.
And that's interesting. GBR Challenge attack now. Can the British team get the speed on the boat to cross the line? 6 seconds to go. Prada are on the pace. GBR Challenge on the pace too. That is the gun. Well, the British team wanted the right-hand side of the track. They won the right-hand side of the track. They were in control of the start. Windward boat looking good. They decided to tack. No pressure on them from Prada. So the British team, Andy Beadsworth, headed off to the right-hand side of the racetrack because he wanted to, not because he was made to. Great Britain won that start. Let's just look at our animation now, which shows both boats nudging the gain line, separate sides of the track. And Ian Walker is now steering the boat. But the British team have the right-hand side of the racetrack, the favourable side of the racetrack. There's the Italian team, the defenders of the Louis Vuitton Cup, tack onto port. Prada now have got a swing to the left. The wind has swung, which enables them to point closer to the mark, which means that they are now, if not in the lead, it's really, really close. Well, the aerial view there really gives you some perspective of the distance between the two boats. GBR Challenge here, right out on the right-hand side of the racetrack. And Prada just slicing into view there, have come far, far left. Prada, bottom of your screen, coming in from the left-hand side of the racetrack, and way, way in the distance, top of your screen, you can just about see it. That is GBR Challenge, looking from Prada now, all the way across. I keep expecting GBR Challenge to attack, but... And there they go now. Well, you watch those eyes. As soon as they've completed that tack, they'll be looking under that boom. There they go, to see Prada. Well, at the moment, the animation is showing us that GBR Challenge is ahead, but they're a long way apart, huge separation, and the wind hasn't got to shift very much to change that position. So Prada, bottom of your screen. GBR Challenge, they're right now, right of your screen. They are coming in with right of way. Peter Harrison there, the man who put this whole thing together looking across. Quite a moment this for him, quite a moment this for all the British team if they can get that vital first cross.
Okay, he's tacked below us because we're crossing, okay?
Information there from Ado Stead. He's tacked below us, we're crossing. Well, the good news about that is that Prada have tacked below the British boat. So we're both on the same tack, going the same way. So that's a safety position for us.
Yeah, that's good news, Richard, you know. Prada will have realised that they were actually going to be behind GBR Challenge.
Well, Prada look to be ahead, but they're a lot further away from the mark.
Yeah, that's the...
Tight in there on GBR Challenge. The boats now both sailing on the same tack. They're both on starboard tack. I'd say about 75% up towards the top mark.
We've still got 3 minutes yet.
3 minutes to go.
Yeah, that was Jules just commenting there. They've got 3 minutes to go to the port lay line.
On the water, Prada attacking. Let's have a quick look at the animation. How does that look? Well, it looks that Britain are still in the lead. Prada attacking. It looks a bit closer, though. Italian team in the foreground. ITA 74, the team that won the America's Cup Challenger Series last time, but distances can be deceptive.
Yeah, Richard, in fact, I was wrong. It looked like they were bow to bow, but I think they are actually on the port lay line as GBR Challenge their tack onto port.
Hey, let's quickly look at the animations. Look, it's Prada are saying they're on the gain line. They're in the lead. Prada, the wind swung to the left. Prada got the advantage, but if Britain can get to that mark, if the British team can get to that mark without having to tack, they can get and squeeze round on the inside. But if the wind pushes them away from the mark, well, it could be big problems for the British team. So very tense moments this. With Prada on the outside.
Yeah, Richard, and what's interesting here is actually both boats are going to set different spinnakers. The spinnaker pole on Prada is very low, which indicates we're going to set an A sail, whereas our spinnaker pole is set very high, so we're going to set a standard symmetrical spinnaker.
Well, we're in control coming up round there. Prada went round with better speed. As they had better speed, they overhauled us. The difference is 5 seconds between the two boats.
Cheers to
So 2 boats, 2 different sails, 2 different choices. Which one will pay?
Which one will pay indeed? You know, without actually reading the instruments on board the boat, it's difficult to know exactly how much breeze you've got. But looking at the picture, I would say it's pretty even, actually. You know, I mean,
Prada are going to jibe, and every boat handling manoeuvre is a big issue in these machines. The boom slides across. Well, this is good for the British team. The British team now are slightly ahead, slightly advantaged GBR.
GBR Challenge will be a little bit nervous of Prada coming up and them being windward boat and having to keep clear.
British team have jibed and they're going to slice round.
They will be behind Prada, but God, it's close.
The thing to watch for here is confrontation. Both boats so easy to make a mistake. Both boats to touch to get a penalty. And the Prada team, the Italian team, left a picture, are jibing now. Well, that was the voice of an Italian who wasn't entirely happy with the way things were going on board that boat right then.
Yeah, no, Richard, his voice is always an indication that things aren't going exactly right.
So the British boat are coming down there on the inside track. This is the moment. Prada have jibed. GBR Challenger coming across.
Oh, Richard, that was close. In fact, too close. Is there contact?
Sounds pretty composed on board the British team. The British team had no right of way there. They just sliced behind Prada.
Yes, although, you know, Prada jibing onto starboard do gain rights, but they do have to give GBR Challenge.
No problem, says the umpire. Green flag, no penalty circles. Race continues as it was. Prada on the right, GBR Challenge on the left, and the British team have been gaining all the way down on this last leg, but I think they are going to run out of racetrack. Prada now about 150 metres away from the finish line. And of course, the British team wanted a point on the board. But let's not forget, the boat we're looking at now, the boat that's about to cross the line and win this race is Prada. Prada, the winner of the last America's Cup Challenger Series. They lost in the America's Cup finals. That's the gun. Victory for the Italians. So the British team come down to the finish line now. Similar to Stars and Stripes, that deficit. But for the British team, real disappointment. They didn't claw back. But they have got that protest flag, so perhaps today is not over yet.
Well, Shirley Robertson, what a close race, eh?
Great race. They looked fantastic, our team. Came out punching and won the start, and I was really pleased to see that. They've had a few disappointing starts in the last few races. And their strategy was to go right, to win the right-hand side, and they did that.
Well, they did that, but then this trouble happened, didn't it? Here we have them coming up to that first mark, Nick Maloney. We have them coming up. There's Prada coming up. A little bit of a lead there. Just, oh, it's gone now. A little bit of a lead for the British boat coming in behind here. On starboard tack with right of way. Prada on port tack. Just watch what happens now. Here they go. Now they tack the British boat. They don't come across and face up to Prada. Prada now going at 10.4 knots. The British boat down at 7.5, obviously picking up after that tack. And the sad thing is now that because they're very tight up to the wind here and pinched a bit, Prada now begins to overtake them. Just watch what happens now. There's 10 knots from Prada. You can see the speed there at the end of the arrow. And here we have the British boat, you'll see, dropping now as it's trying to pinch up to the wind to get round the buoy that's just about to appear here. So it's a very tight fight. The 2 knots advantage for Prada zooming past here because that British boat is really quite tight to the wind. Prada has a good angle. There's the buoy. They're going round the buoy. Prada gets round first. So poor old GBR Challenge, the White Lightning boat, loses its advantage. Now, what do you reckon, Nick? Could Ian Walker have done any better than that?
I actually think the boys did a great job there. They wind shift at the top mark, put White Lightning, in fact, behind. So the options were to cross Luna Rosa's stern and tack on her stern and follow her in, or to tack early, sail a shorter course, shorter distance to the top mark and attempt to squeeze between the Italian boat and the top mark.
Right away. Could he not have come across the front of Prada?
He wouldn't have got Prada.
And that would have been a disaster if he'd gone behind.
Would have been a disaster. He would have followed him in and you know, the lead for the Italian boat just would have increased.
OK, Shirley, now remember that amazing scene when the 2 boats were having that jibing battle, going downwind from the... going downwind, we're just going to see it. There we are, there's a picture there now. You see there's White Lightning at the top, there's Prada there, and look at White Lightning surging along here past different kind of spinnaker, and they battled like that all the way down. Amazing, that downwind race, wasn't it?
White Lightning were quick on this run, and we saw them close right up on Prada, and that was fantastic, but just very difficult just to make that extra gain.
But they couldn't do it, Nick, could they?
No, they couldn't. They made a very crucial decision at the top mark to fly their symmetrical spinnaker, and 2 different boats, 2 different spinnakers, and it was the right choice by the boys, so they threw everything they had at it and made a good game.
OK, now why have the British team swapped the 2 Andys? Andy Beadsworth replacing Andy Green, who steered White Lightning in this brush with the American One World boat.
We felt they were early. We pushed them. We just got a little bit too close. I touched the bow to their stern and we were penalised. After that, we got a small riding turn on the jib and weren't able to tack away. And as a result, we were slow out of the line, which is never good for a race. But having said that, they sailed extremely well and they were a little bit faster.
And Andy Green was also steering in this pre-start struggle with the Italian syndicate Mascalzone Latino, the Latin Rascals. Andy Green left his final tack to the start line very late, and the result was they had to sail very close to the wind, too close for any speed, in order to scrape around the starting buoy. Now here's how Peter Harrison, boss of the GBR Challenge, explained the swap of his helmsman.
The Americas Cup is a long campaign. We might be in 40 or 50 races. We have got 34 men in the squad. We've got 2 starting helmsmen. We've got 2 on the course straight line helmsmen. Today, we brought in Andy Beadsworth as our starting helmsman.
Well, there's Peter Harrison, the man who's got £22 million of his own money tied up in this enterprise, expending this, I would have thought, Nick, pretty drastic move, swapping his helmsman, no?
No, well, as Peter stated, there are 2 starting helmsmen within the team. It's just like having 2 sails that are equal but different shapes. So if you think one in the bag is a little bit quicker or potentially different than the one that you're flying at the moment, you may change. I think it was a pretty standard decision in this point of the game.
OK, well, let's look at the 2 things that one may judge that Andy Green may have done wrong. First of all, let's look at how the British boat was tackling One World. Here we are. There's One World in front, the American boat in front. Here's the British boat behind, coming up there before the start. And look, there he is, touching the transom, just touching the back of the American boat. Now, surely, is that bad helming by Andy Green there?
I think Andy would admit that he made an error there, and if there's going to be contact, there is going to be a penalty. So it's a very high-risk manoeuvre.
So he was probably, you know, for high jump after that, was he?
Oh, we don't make the decisions.
No, but I mean...
But, yeah, he would be under pressure after that, and I'm sure that's in the back of his mind.
That didn't help him. Now, let's look at this next one, because here we have the other mistake he may have made. There's White Lightning on the left there. Here we have the Italian boat, the Rascals boat there, coming round, heading for the start line. That's the line going straight across us. Look at that buoy. They've got to get between that buoy and the start line. They've just about made it. But look, White Lightning, Nick, has got pretty much caught there. Look, 2.6 knots only across the start line, whereas the Italians are racing away at 7 knots. Now, what did Andy Green do wrong there? If he did, do you think he did?
Well, that's undoubtedly a bit of a shocker there. Andy's under a lot of pressure. The boat's very, very long, and there's many channels of communication to get information back to Andy. So I think the boys in a total team will be assessing that start. OK. Well, the closest race so far for the British crew has been their nail-biting fight with the French team, Le Défi Arava. This time, Andy Beadsworth, before he became the new starting helmsman, joins Richard Simmons to tell the story.
Well, the mainsail down on GBR Challenge tells the story of the day. 4 hours with no wind, then suddenly it kicks in and there's a change of sail.
Yeah, it looks like the guys are changing from a Code 2 to a Code 3 mainsail here. It's a heavy air mainsail.
But at the moment, the French are prepared and ready to go, and the British team are not ready to go. That's a 10-minute gun. 10 minutes to the start. 5 minutes to the boat must be in the starting area.
Oh, this doesn't look good. There must be a problem here. The mainsail's
sail's coming down
again. This is not good. They must have a problem. It's a batten problem.
Yeah, it's a batten problem. They're pulling the batten out of the sail. 5-minute gun, let battle commence, but there's only one team in this. The French are here, there's no sign of the British, so GBR Challenge have got a penalty. At the moment, the British team are heading to get back behind the line. 14 seconds to go. The British team ahead of the French as they spin around, and it's looking good. Have Walker's team got out of jail?
Unbelievably, after all that drama, it actually looks like we're going to win this start.
And that is the start. Great position for the British team. Well, the French team won't be happy there.
Oh, and I can see a red flag here and the fluttering leech on the main. The fluttering leech looks like it's probably something to do with the batten missing. Maybe that was the problem at the beginning of the race. And the red flag, I would imagine, is a procedural protest, which could be important if we don't win this race on the water.
Well, the British team have sailed the French beyond the top mark, but the French team now, I think, are past. It's very close. There's lots of shouting on the British boat. The British team are protesting as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's really important here that we either get a penalty or go around this mark ahead so that we can stay in this race.
At the moment, the French team are on the inside track as they dive down towards the top mark. No penalty to the French team. They've sailed well. The British are very close.
As it stands now, the French are going to go round ahead.
Now watch this. The French team are coming in very wide. They're tacking. The British team are coming in from behind.
This is another opportunity here. We're on starboard tack.
So Walker's team have right of way. The French team tack. Now, if Walker's team have to change course, have to alter direction, they will win the penalty. They're claiming the penalty. Where is the umpire boat? There it is, and there's a blue flag. That is a penalty to the French team. Walker's team have redressed the balance. Remember, that blue flashing light means the French have to do a 360-degree penalty turn. Their spinnaker comes down. The French are doing that turn right now. The British are heading for the line.
They've got to keep clear. They've got to keep clear here, so we're in.
Peter Harrison's GBR Challenge have done it. They have won the race against the French team, but it went to the end, didn't it?
We were about as close to losing that race as you'd ever be. I mean, a penalty down at the start, hampered by the bat not being in the sail, and we managed to fight back, and all credit to the crew for getting a penalty back on the other team. In fact, 2 penalties, and then being close enough to win it. So that was a very important moment for us.
Unbelievably close finish yet again. Well, now we have a mainsail in the studio here. Now, Nick, was it a very risky operation trying to change that sail before the race?
Very, very risky, given the time frame they had to change it. They were under a lot of pressure, and the whole situation got very, very stressful for the race crew. I'm a little bit bewildered as to how the breeze came across the course so quickly.
You see them doing it now. They're changing the sail, struggling away there with the sail. Amazing. So that was a risky operation, but they succeeded and they got into the race. Unbelievable. They got the front of the first start of the race, and they made it up to the first mark. Now then, Shirley, at the first mark, we had this extraordinary scene, didn't we? Let's have a look at our animation here. And we can see here in a moment, I think, our animation coming up. Yes, here we are. They're coming up to the mark. Here's the French boat on the windward side. The French boat doesn't have right of way. The British boat has right of way. Now, they've got to go round that. You can't quite see it at the moment. There's a buoy in the middle of that circle. There it is, the buoy there. They've got to go clockwise round that. Here they go. The French boat trying hard to push the British off. Finally, they both turn, and they go round the buoy. Now, they appealed for a penalty there, the British. They didn't get one because the French boat really didn't have right of way to do that. Anyway, as they go round the buoy, the British appealed again, Shirley, didn't they? And what happens here?
Well, the French really have their spurs on, don't they? They're complete cowboys in this whole scenario. Coming down on the British, they were really lucky not to get a penalty then. But at the top mark, they got a penalty for infringing port and starboard. They were in the wrong, completely in the wrong there. But they also then got a second penalty because they gained from that. They were then ahead, and they were able to sail off. So the umpires thought they should infringe them once again and gave them a second penalty, which evened up the scenario a bit more. 2
penalties against the French, 1 penalty against the Brits for being late in at the start. Only 1 then ended up against the French, and that's how they lost the race. Amazing race. They do have some amazing close shaves. Now, one other member of the British crew who's quite literally put his foot in it is Chris Mayne. He shinned up the mast. You can see him there to see if he could spot any shift in the wind. And he went and put his foot through the mainsail, can you believe it, knocking a large hole in it. Then he frantically tried to patch it up, but luckily it wasn't too windy or it would have ripped to pieces. Now, here's the mainsail on the boat here. It's the main powerhouse of the boat. It goes from left to right as the crew shifts the boom over to catch the wind here or the other side here. Now, up here somewhere was Chris Mayne looking out for the wind. And when the boat jibed, which means the mainsail was moved from one side to the other with the wind behind it, he noticed that a batten hadn't settled properly into position. Now, here's a piece of mainsail here with a batten in it. Here's a batten in it just here, another batten up here. The batten's there to stiffen the sail up. Sometimes the batten wants to bend the wrong way, and that's what he was trying to sort out, but he must have given it quite a whack. He probably banged it there with his foot like that, and they're very tough, these sails. They have carbon fibre straps running right through them. How on earth do you think, Nick, he could have put his foot through that sail as tough as that?
Well, if you look closely at these sails, majority of the strength fibres run vertically, and they're bound together with a thin mylar plastic film. So that tolerance between the 2 strong fibres is very, very thin. It's actually quite easy to punch your foot through it.
OK, now, let's go and look at that race with a lingy a little bit earlier on. There's the Swiss boat over on the far side there. There's the British boat, White Lightning, here. Now, the Swiss boat, Shirley, is coming closer and closer to White Lightning, although White Lightning here's ahead. That green line shows it's ahead. Here, White Lightning is on the windward side, so the Swiss boat actually has right-of-way, the leeward boat has right-of-way, but as they come closer, the British boat, even though it's in front, watch what happens. Look at this. Look at this. The British boat suddenly decides to turn away. Then the Swiss boat takes over the lead, and the poor old Brits are in trouble. Now, Shirley, what happened there? Why did he pull away?
Well, the Swiss sailed that whole beat faster and slightly higher, which means they sailed slightly closer to the wind. They were really, really going well there. And they were just climbing up on White Lightning the whole time. And when they got into...
The red one's the Swiss boat, right?
It is, and green one's us. And as they got closer and closer, there was a chance that Alinghi would give us bad air. There'd be bad air and disturbed air coming off their sails. And before that happened, Ian tacked away into clear air, so he didn't lose speed.
I see. So he really had to do it, no choice.
He had no opportunity.
But it may have helped him lose the race.
Well, Alinghi was going very well. They looked very fast there, so...
OK, well, now let's get Nick back in the dinghy again with Ellen MacArthur, who at the age of 24 was second in the round-the-world single-handed race. She'll be able to show him a thing or two about running downwind this time.
Right now we're sailing downwind with the wind behind the boat, cut my actually from over here. But if you want to go over there, for example, we're going to have to do something which is called a jibe. When the boat jibes, it means that the wind switches from this side of the boat. You take the stern through the wind, so the wind starts to come from this side. And one of the reactions of that will obviously be that these sails have to swap to the other side of the boat. It's kind of the opposite of tacking. You go for a jibe, Nick?
Yeah, sure, mate.
Going down. To the main, the over. We now have the breeze coming from this side of the boat. Spinnaker's out, and we're heading downwind this way. As we jibe, one of the biggest jobs on board is actually to pull the big spinnaker across to the other side of the boat. So that's going to be Nick's job right now. Ready for the jibe?
We're in here.
Going. Going down. Main coming over. Another of the jobs during a jibe on the cut boat is actually to change the side of the pole. The pole's what holds the spinnaker out. So when we jibe, we have to take that pole across the boat, almost like the boom swaps from one side to the other. So one of the big jobs is watching the little guy on the foredeck, trying to sort out that enormous pole and get it on the right corner of the spinnaker.
It takes an enormous amount of coordination and an enormous amount of just physical effort to jibe an America's Cup class boat. They're probably one of the most powerful boats for their length. When you're the behind boat in an America's Cup race, your best tool for gaining advance and an avenue to pass on the lead boat is to instigate what we call a jibing duel. Downwind, when you're moving such masses of area, the grinders are never working harder than they have in their whole training or their whole life, and it's really, really full on. When you're trimming, you're encouraging the grinders, come on mate, you know, just keep putting in, and they're absolutely going for it.
Go for another jibe, Nick?
Ready here.
Coming over.
And if you think that looks hard enough for the dinghy, just try it on America's Cup boat, as Nick was saying. Now, the other action from Auckland in just a moment, but first, what a history this trophy has. 151 years ago, the Americans triumphed over the flower of British yachts off the south of England. And this led to the America's Cup, which the Americans have held on to in all but 3 of the 30 contests so far. Some of the greatest British challenges for the Cup we've never won began just over a century ago. In 1899, Sir Thomas Lipton, the Irish tea baron, mounted his first challenge with his yacht Shamrock. In all, he mounted 5 campaigns, including the Shamrock 3 Challenge in 1903. This huge yacht was 134 feet long, had more than 14,000 square feet of sail and a crew of 50, but it wasn't enough to win back the Cup. None of his challenges were to prove successful. It almost looked as if the British challenge had died with Sir Thomas. But in 1934, Thomas Sopwith, who'd made his money in early aircraft production, came nearest to winning the Cup with his J-class yacht Endeavour. everything was going to plan, as Endeavour won the first 2 races and even led in the 3rd, only to be overhauled. Overall, Endeavour lost 4-2 to the American yacht Rainbow.
I'd like a Lingy to be there, and I'm pretty sure they will be. Oracle, with all that money, victory may come through. A bit of a dark horse.
Really?
The one I'd like to see come through and win a few races would be the Great Britain boat.
Thanks, Dan. Well, as you can tell, now that the racing's actually begun, Auckland is very definitely in the grip of America's Cup fever. The obvious Cup spin-off is this area known as the Viaduct. Development of this once derelict dockside has continued since New Zealand first won the Cup 7 years ago. And this glittering array of upmarket apartments, restaurants and bars has become a focal point for Aucklanders. A jewel in the Viaduct crown is the recently completed Base Club, membership of which provides the ultimate America's Cup box seat.
Well, it works so well here in Auckland because we were able to get a location within the harbour that really lets people see into the America's Cup bases, that the boats have to come right by the Base Club, and our guests can make eye contact with each of the individual sailors, and so the experience is really good here.
The Auckland property market is running on overdrive, partly fueled by the America's Cup. Larry Ellison, the mega-billionaire owner of the Oracle Challenger Syndicate, plans to move in. Living cheek by jowl with the international jet set has its benefits, as some of that wealth rubs off.
Last time there was about $640 million to the Auckland economy, and this time we're expecting more. Again, it operates at several levels. It showcases Auckland, and particularly for tourism.
Air New Zealand had 15% more inbound passengers during the last regatta, and they've already doubled the number of flights from Los Angeles. So it would seem the only cloud on the horizon is if one of these syndicates separates the Cup from Auckland next March.
The highlight of the last week's racing had to be the tough battle between the 2 leading challengers. The American One World was pitted against the Swiss boat Alinghi. During the race, there was only ever a 22-second margin between the two in the closest fought battle so far. Peter Gilmore skippered One World to a 10-second victory. Impressive wins against GBR Challenge, Stars and Stripes, and most recently the Swedish Victory have put One World top of the standings with 5 wins from 5. Oracle's confidence was running high with an open victory against Prada under their belts. Next up was the much easier tussle with the Italian stragglers Mascalzone Latino, which they won easily. The All-American duel against Dennis Connor's Stars and Stripes was much tougher to call. At the start, it was nip and tuck, with only a few feet between them. The upbeat leg saw Oracle running high and fast as they nudged past on sheer boat speed. They had a lead that was to grow to 2 minutes. Oracle still remain unbeaten after a comfortable win over the Défi. Alleghi came back from narrow defeat against One World with 4 straight wins. Mascalzone Latino was the first scalp, and then came last time's America's Cup finalists Prada. The Italians got off to a good start, and Russell Coutts at the helm of Alinghi had to respond. By the first mark, the Swiss had regained a lead they were never to lose. Last night, they added Stars and Stripes to their list of conquests. The Swedish Victory Challenge have had mixed fortunes. Defeat by Prada and One World have been cancelled out by wins against weaker opponents. When they faced Stars and Stripes, Victory proved they're a fast boat, and they claimed the point with a 30-second win. Some might say Prada is underperforming. With points on the board against Le Défi and GBR, their best race by far was against Victory Challenge. But these have been cancelled out by Alinghi, Oracle and Stars and Stripes. They are clearly the struggling American syndicate, finding it tough against their fellow countrymen, losing to One World and Oracle, as well as the Swiss and the Swedes. They've had success over Prada and GBR Challenge. The French boat, the Défi Arava, had tumbling fortunes, offloading their spinnaker in a highly embarrassing cock-up as they trawled it around the leeward mark. They were penalised, but failed to finish anyway, which more or less sums up their challenge so far. Languishing with the French are the second Italian crew, the Rascals, who also yet to win a race and suffered the biggest defeat so far at the hands of Alinghi by a whopping 7 minutes. So just to give you the overall picture, after 23 races so far of what will be over 100 altogether, 2 of the American boats, One World and Oracle, are unbeaten so far up there at the top, with a Lingy of the Swiss Challenge. GBR struggling down there in 7th position. The bottom place boat at the end of the second round will be eliminated before the quarterfinal. So 8 of these boats will go through to the quarterfinal. Well, now, Richard Simmons joins me from Auckland right now live. Richard, can the British boat, do you think, pick themselves up and win a few races?
Well, yes, and I'll tell you why. I mean, yesterday, Prada, some may say they're going slowly, but they still won the America's Cup Challenger Series last time. 20 seconds was the difference, and as Peter Harrison said, that's about a second a mile. It was a good scrap yesterday. If we can get to that first mark first, that's so crucial. Yesterday we so nearly did, and I think we will. Yesterday we showed great potential, and I think we've got to remember, and they certainly remember here, this, we hope, is the beginning of a long, long game. So there's plenty to feel optimistic about, but of course we do need those points on the scoreboard.
All right, well, now with you, Richard, I think you've got Joe Richards there, who's one of the main designers of the GBR boat. Good morning, Joe, or good evening, or whatever it is there. It's evening, of course, there now. Now, Joe, what's holding up the GBR team as they do these races? I mean, oh, yes, they're doing very well, as Richard says, but they're not quite winning enough. Is it the crew or is it the boat?
It's like all these things. It's a combination of a whole lot of things. The boat, from a design point of view, we're actually pretty pleased we've got to where we are. We're racing syndicates like Prada and Stars and Stripes with immense experience and are in a very similar ballpark. The reality is there's 2 or 3 syndicates, you know, Oracle, One World and Lingy, which are looking quicker than the rest of the bunch. We're determined to raise our game and try and get there. This is the best opportunity we have in the next 3 years to raise our game.
How's morale, Joe? How's morale? A bit dented?
No, it's actually pretty constructive. We're modifying the second boat at the moment. We've got various things planned for the first boat. If we can give the sailors that little bit more edge, then their confidence will just go rocketing up.
Okay.
And life just gets easier all round.
Okay, in now just 1 hour, the British crew raced the Scandinavians, the Victory Challenge it's called, and here's what their skipper thinks of the Brits.
GBR still has the Latinos to come, and you will see the winds starting to come. I think today was sort of a turning point where the way you saw them sailing today, they sailed with a lot of confidence, a lot of speed, so it's just a matter of when it comes, because, I mean, we are not stronger than them. That's how we feel.
And let's see what the weather will be like. Rob McKelvey has the details.
Evening. The winds are clearly the most important bit in the Hauraki Gulf, which is east of Auckland. So when they turn round to the west, these winds dance over the hills and they get quite gusty. Now, we haven't had very much wind with a high pressure sitting over North Island, but it's on its way out. And this forecast over the weekend sees an increase, as you can see from the number of arrows, but the wind is from the west or the southwest. That means it will dance over the hills. And it's accompanied by a cold front. The high's drifting into the southern Pacific. Cold front means rain. Not a particular problem, except I think this time it'll take the limits very close to sensible sailing. Maybe up to 20 or 21 miles an hour at the masthead, both Saturday and Sunday. So, summarising it, the high's drifting out of the way, there'll be a bit of rain, but more importantly, the winds are strengthening.
OK, Rob, thank you very much. Now, Joe, do you think you can beat Victory?
I think it'd be very close. When you look at where we both are in terms of speed, we're very similar there. They're just behind the front bunch, fighting for the 4th place in the semi-finals, and I think we're realistically, in speed terms, very similar. It'll be a very close race.
Richard, what do you think, in a word, the key thing is the British crew have got to do to pick up and really move forward now?
Well, like I said, not that much. I think get to the first mark first, because in this competition, we've seen the boat that's second struggles to get past that leader. That's what we've got to do. Get to the first mark first, and I think we should be smiling.
Shelley, very briefly, what do you think, who's going to win this thing? Who's going to be the overall winner? Who's looking right ahead?
But that's really hard. I mean, the top 3 boats, Oracle, One World and Lingy, are sailing very well, sailing fast, and also just not making any errors. I can't think of any errors we've seen them make. So they're going to dominate this.
Nick, a quick guess?
A Lingy, I'm going to stick with a Lingy. That's for the Louis Vuitton Cup.
OK. All right, well, thank you very much indeed, both of you. And that's all we have time for this week. Let's hope the wind blows a bit harder. Looks as if it is going to. Keep in touch with BBCI. Join us again next week.